The Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to The Locker Room on this fine, sunny Sunday afternoon. And what else can I say about Sunday with an S in it? Oh, no, I'm not going to go there because it's a Sunday. We're here until 5 o'clock tonight, joined by my usual co-host, Mr. Duffy himself. And welcome back to the show. Alistair will be taking us all the way through until 5 o'clock. Well, I was just saying to you last night, because as I do speak to you once a week, because that's really enough for me. When I speak to Graham, not you, Alistair, I would speak to you any time of the week, but at least Hearts fans, But I was just watching the highlights last night, and I thought, God, 2 hours to fill. How are we going to do that? And then I watched a small matter of a game to get Ibrox between two small teams in Glasgow, between Rangers and Celtic. The game finished 3 each. Get your comments coming in. I would like to hear from you. We're on Facebook and YouTube this afternoon. And also we might keep you up to date with the small matter of Man United against Liverpool. That we league kind of down south. We like to keep an eye on it once a year. So as Graham says, oh no, we don't. Because I know what team Graham wants to win this afternoon. And it's not Man United. There's a big hint for you. And Alistair will be happy as well, because as I said to you yesterday, Alistair, I think this is the first time we've been on the show on the Sunday. That's Johnson's actually won a game on a Saturday. But I'm sorry, we're not going to start with that game. We must start with the game Ibrox between Rangers and Celtic. Rangers flee, Celtic flee. And, we only had to wait 21 minutes to start. I wasn't even in my seat yet until Maida scored the goal, Grim.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, that was a sensational game. Like, for a neutral, it was an unbelievable game of football. And I didn't see it happening after the first half, because I thought Celtic were so dominant. They get the goal after 21 seconds from Maida. I don't know what Tavernier was doing. But all through that first half, Celtic just looked so dominant. They had so many chances. You mentioned before we came on air, Jack Butland had a brilliant game in front of Gareth Southgate. He made a couple of brilliant saves, especially with Matt O'Reilly header. And at that point, Rangers were creating nothing. Now, in the group chat, Stephen had basically said that there's not a balance in that Rangers midfield. I think he was right. Rangers were so poor in that first half. Celtic were just so composed, so dominant. They get the second goal through the Matt O'Reilly penalty. I mean, what a nerve to do that at Ibrox, to score a Panenka. It's a brilliant, brilliant penalty. And you're thinking, this is only going one way here. This will be a comfortable Celtic win. But credit to Rangers. They made the change at half-time, took off Scott Wright, who was pretty ineffectual, brought on Sima, who I thought was very impressive second half. I thought he had Greg Taylor on toast. And they just pressed a lot better. I think the game does change in the penalty. Now, again, I've no horse in this race, but for me, I don't think that's a penalty. I don't see any contact there on Fabio Silva. I think he's going down very, very easily. I don't think that's a penalty. John Beaton goes to the monitor and gives it, so he's seen contact that I've not seen. I don't think it's a penalty. And from then on, Rangers started to really press. It's a really, really decent finish by Sima, but it's a deflected goal. And then at that point, you're thinking, right, a 2-2 draw. But no, Celtic go and get a third goal from Ida. Again, it's a decent finish. Could Butland do better? Potentially. And then at that point, you're thinking it's game over now. But what a finish from Matondo. It's an incredible finish to a quite sensational game. Now, our game gets talked down a lot from other people, but that was a sensational game. Honestly, as a neutral, I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed that. And a draw, in the end, was probably fair.
Before we bring Alistair in, we've got to say we're on the road this afternoon, Graham. A couple of people is watching the show. Good afternoon, David from Newcastle. Sorry, that was a bad attempt to that. I hope Ant and Dick isn't watching the show. In fact, I hope they are, because we are doing a better job than you. Anyway, Paul Donaldson on YouTube is saying good afternoon, and David saying Rangers will win. Well, the game finished, so Rangers didn't win. It was Fleets to get. Alaska, what was, before we dive into the game today, what did you think of a good advert for Scottish football, I would say?
It was a good advert for football, never mind Scottish football. It was how you want to see a game played, isn't it? You want to see two teams trying to score goals. And yes, I'll be honest, I actually switched on slightly late, so I didn't even see the first goal. I mean, I was a couple of minutes getting to the television, and I didn't actually realise that it was 1-0, because you kind of assume it's going to be 0-0. And then it was quite obvious, as Graham said, Celtic were the better team by a reasonable margin in the first half. And it looked like it was only going to go away. But the second half, in actual fact, if Celtic had got a third, the game would have been over and it'd been boring. And this would probably be a very short conversation. It was the fact that Rangers managed to take the game back to Celtic. And you wouldn't have been surprised if somebody even got a winner. Mm-hmm. It was one of those kind of games. And yes, there was, I mean, it's interesting because beforehand there was a lot of comment about the referee. I actually thought he wasn't too bad. I thought he was actually a reasonable game. Yeah. I think he obviously had a lot of pressure on him, given the circumstances. You know, he's kind of got to go with the penalties because he gets sent to the screen. The law is framed in such a way now that even though we all think it's ridiculous, it's a handball in the law. Therefore, it's a penalty. The one that was where he gave the yellow card for the dive, at the time I thought that was right. Unlike Graham, I thought I could see there was contact, so I can see how he could give it. But unsurprisingly, on Sky afterwards, you've got Neil Lennon saying it was never a penalty, you know, and you've got Chris Boyd saying it was a Stonewall penalty. Referee can't win in those circumstances. No, just to go back to it, was a fantastic game of football to watch. Really, really enjoyable. And I don't know who's going to be more happy after this. Well, both sides will say, yeah, you know, we're happy with the point. And I think Celtic fans have been happy with the point before the game started. If Rangers win all the rest of the games, that's the League One, obviously. But they can still now go top and afford a draw, I think, at Celtic Park and still win. Unless Scott Middleton did it wrong. So it's going to be fascinating. You couldn't put before the game, I'd have said you couldn't put a sheet of paper between the two teams. And I think that's still the case now.
But there you go, Graham. Alaska's basically said a sheet of paper, but as we say in the west of Scotland, a fag packet between the two of them. Graham, looking back at that first half, it was all Celtic. Of course, Celtic easily went 3 or 4-0 up at half time. Looking at my notes here, I didn't really have much to take in the Rangers' point of view, apart from maybe a Golson head in the first half, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, Celtic came out on absolute fire. They were so good. I know there was talk before the game about would Callum McGregor start. I know it was put in the group chat. He was on the bench, and I think it was the right call, clearly from Brendan Rodgers, because a lot of Celtic dominated that midfield completely. Rangers really couldn't get to grips with Celtic at all. Every time Celtic came forward, they were going to score. They were causing so many problems, especially on that left-hand side with Maeda against Tavernier.
Do you think it was because of the early goals Celtic scored?
Yeah, potentially.
Put Rangers off, yeah.
Yeah, potentially. I don't think anyone, listen, nobody could have expected that. I think Alistair's right. These games are normally kind of cagey, especially at Ibrox, to have a goal scored after 21 seconds. When I think most folk weren't even in their seats at the time. It's just unheard of, but I don't know what Tavernier's doing. It's just a long ball. You just got to deal with it. I don't know what he's trying to do there. And fair play to Maeda, because we know what Maeda's like. He never stops running. Already he was working really hard, and he gets the credit he deserves for that goal. But I don't know what Tavernier's doing. And after that, Celtic were just so dominant. I think it did spook Rangers a little bit. Go 1-0 down so early on. But if you're going to concede, I suppose it's the best time to concede after 21 seconds. You've got plenty of time to get back in the game. But at that point, Celtic were just so dominant. They were cutting them open every single time. I think Maeda had a chance that I think he should do better with. It's a decent save from Butland, but it's straight at him. like I said, Buttons did a couple of really big saves, especially from O'Reilly's header. But Celtic were just so comfortable in that first half. Rangers were so lopsided. They couldn't get in the game at all. Dessers couldn't get in the game. Scott Wright couldn't get in the game. Their attacking threat was just non-existent. And Celtic generally could have been 4 or 5 up in that first half. And I think had they got the third goal in that first half, I think it's game over. I genuinely do. The one thing I would say, and I've said this numerous times, I know it's going to change next season. Celtic scored 3 goals today, but there was no Celtic fans in that ground to celebrate them. It was just so quiet. I don't like that. And I've said that numerous times. If that was Hearts to Hibs, I wouldn't like it. You need to get those fans back in that stadium. It is not good enough.
Paul Donaldson says on YouTube, that was a good Glasgow derby this afternoon. Alistair, the reason why I was saying to Graham was because it kind of spooked Rangers and Ibrox. I felt as though I was watching the Metro rivalry sometimes when that goal went in. But I would say the same thing about Celtic when Rangers got a penalty, and I know we'll get to the penalty very soon. But do you think that kind of like spooked Celtic for most of the second half?
Sorry, what you mean? The fact that in the second half the way Rangers came out at them, you mean?
Yeah. Well, when Rangers got the penalty, do you think it? Yeah.
Sorry, beg your pardon. That's a good question because it shouldn't. Because let's be honest, if you take away the fact that it's the Old Firm and it's just 2 teams, professional teams playing, they lose goals. So they train for coming back. It shouldn't have done. But on the other hand, it's at Ibrox in front of 50,000 odd people, all of whom want Rangers to win. So the pressure immediately goes up a bit, and it's how you respond to it. And I think there was that period immediately after that in which you actually thought, Rangers are definitely going to score again, which they did. Then it was disallowed. And I think it was just the way that Rangers changed their tactics, the way they approached the game. They were miles off the pace in the first half. I think the manager probably will look back and regret some of the decisions he made to change the team because he obviously made 1 or 2 changes, not playing Cantwell from the start.
Sima.
Not playing Sima, of course, yeah. So you're looking at that and thinking, did the manager get it wrong? Probably. But could they cope with the onslaught in the first half? No. Could Celtic cope in the second half? Better, in the sense that they didn't lose. But as in any game, you know what it's like. If you're 2-0 down and there's 10 minutes to go and you get a goal, the whole place gets a lift. An enormous lift. And then you really see them going for it. What always gets me as a fan is, why could they not go for it when we were 2-0 down when there's half an hour to go? So, yeah, I think that Celtic were put under far more pressure. You could see that because they made some uncharacteristic mistakes. McGregor made a mistake for one of the goals. And that's just the inevitable consequence of the fact that you're in a very, very high pressure game in an entirely antagonistic environment. I agree with Graham as well. I mean, I've been to a number of Old Firm games and I have no dog in that fight. I've been in Celtic end and the Rangers end. And it's much, much better. And I was once, many, many years ago, the guy who's my boss was a Rangers fan. I think it was a League Cup game where they actually split Ibrox 50-50. Like a cup final. So you actually had this unbelievable atmosphere. Okay, it's got all the issues that go with that. We know that. But the atmosphere was brilliant. And it's just rubbish when a team scores and nobody celebrates. Like being back to COVID.
Glenn, let's speak about the subs because I was going to make a brilliant point because see when you think about it now, when the game's finished and you think about these 3 things, the subs actually changed the game in a way, especially for Rangers bringing on Matondo and Sima and Celtic bringing on Ida as well. Because I mean, I don't know about anybody watching or you guys as well, but I thought Kyogo was miles off the pace today. But I just felt as though the subs kind of changed the games for both sides today. Graham.
That's what you want as a manager. You want your changes to make a difference, and they definitely did, and especially for Rangers. They had to do something. When they're 2-0 down at home, no Celtic fans there, you have to do something because they were so bad in that first half. But to be fair, Celtic were very good. But the changes did help. Like I said, I thought Sima was excellent. I said during the group chat, if I'm Rangers and getting the ball to Seamer every time, because he was causing Taylor numerous problems. And if a goal was coming, it was going to be down to him. And then, on the other side, Matondo coming on, I think, made a massive difference. Like I said, the equaliser was a magnificent goal from Matondo. Joe Hart's got no chance. I think you're right. I think Kyogo was a bit off it. He did have a chance in the first half where he was through a couple of times, but couldn't quite get his shot away. I think, to be honest, the pick of the Celtic attackers for me was probably Maeda. I thought he was given the biggest threat. Obviously, Ida comes on, and I spoke on Friday to Alan about Ida, and he comes on and scores. Decent finish, but again, could Butland do better there? But honestly, it was one of these games that it could have gone either way. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at 3-3 if somebody did get a winner there, but I think in the end a draw is probably fair. But the changes definitely did help. I think your question about who does it benefit, I think given the fact they were 2-0 down, probably Rangers.
Alaska, would you say? Oh, I mean, I think it's still 50-50, but I think the small edge might have to go to Celtic because the last games at Celtic Park, and I think the last game will be the second game after the split. They won't make it in the later than after the split, but considering that Celtics went to Ibrox this season and basically got 4 points with no fans. It kind of says a lot, even though I might feel like a defeat to Celtic now because that they put a lot of effort into that first half. But as I keep saying to you, I know we'll get to the penalty might have changed the game, but I mean it says a lot for Celtic to be there to get 4 points in both occasions, not to have any fans there.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, albeit their actual 3 points were at a time when Rangers were poor or not as good as they are now. So, but I still take your point. The points are in the bag. I think what's going to be more interesting, and I don't know the answer to this, one of you two gents might be able to help me on this. When the split comes, obviously, the next Old Firm game will be at Celtic Park. Now, interestingly, this doesn't apply, of course, to other clubs because sometimes you end up playing 3 games away. Now, there is no way the football authorities are going to allow that to happen in the case of the Old Firm. So there's a degree of double standards there. But what I don't know, and maybe you can answer, is this. Obviously, you've got 5 games, 3 at home, 2 away, or 2 away, or 2 at home, 3 away. I don't know how that's going to balance out and what difference that might make.
We should have, if I'm right, because I actually thought this yesterday, we should have Celtic at Parkhead because I already played them at Tynecastle 1-2-0 earlier. And we should have Rangers at Tynecastle because we lost 5-0 at Ibrox. So that's what should happen, whether it does, but that's what should happen in Hearts' point of view.
I think the way it usually works, and obviously it's a SPL, so you can't really tell. Celtic should have more home games than Rangers, but it would be quite interesting what they do at the last game of the season because obviously somebody's got to play away and somebody's got to play at home. I don't know who that's going to be. I'm guessing it would be Celtic at home and Rangers away, but you can never tell. I think the fixtures come out usually after next weekend's games, Graham.
Yeah, it should be,
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the second half then, guys. I told you there wasn't much to talk about yesterday, but we'll get on to yesterday's game very soon. I know Alaska's yeah.
Well, sorry.
We'll leave this at Johnson game till about 5-5. Is that okay, Alaska? And talk about it then. And Graham will talk about Hearts about 5:20 tonight as well, because I thought that game was pretty poor. To be honest.
Oi, we won. I'm happy.
You won, yeah, but the game was so second half, 2-0 down. And to be honest, Clermont, Alaska had a big team talk to make it half time. They came out in the front foot, I would say, and the penalty, I think that kind of changed the game for me.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Graham's mentioned this before. I mean, Silva in the first half was thrown himself all over the place. I mean, I'll come back to penalty in a minute. I mean, the incident when he threw himself to the ground when he was brushed in the face was, I'm sorry, any Rangers fans listen to this, it was pathetic. It really was. It's the kind of thing where you really think the referee should book him just for embarrassment,
Even Chris Boyce said that Anna's got half time.
Well, that shows you. I mean, that means it must have been.
Yeah.
and then you look at the penalty, and at the time I actually thought John Beaton called it right. Now, I would get rid of VAR tomorrow, but we talk about that till the cows come home, because there was a lot of shocking decisions in some of the other games. When they showed it back, I can understand why the penalty might have been given. However, let me give you a little bit of insight into some of this, because, and I cannot mention who the referee was, but as you guys know, I've got contacts in referees. A game where a goal was disallowed, referee was sent to the screen. Now, normally that means he changes his mind. I'm reliably informed this particular referee was so incensed that his decision was overturned that he looked at the screen for about 10 seconds and then just gave his original decision. So referees are human as well. They make errors, but I don't think you can do that in an Old Firm game, and particularly the pressure John Beaton was under. I can understand why he gave it. I think there'll be lots of Celtic fans saying it's never a penalty, not just Neil Lennon. If it was my team at the time, I'd have thought, if there's no VAR, I'd have said, get on with it. When you see it back, I'd have said, yeah, I quite fancy a penalty for that, and I could understand it could have gone either way. If he'd not given it, I could have understood it. If he gave it, I could have understood it. So he made the decision to give it. You've got to say it was a fabulous penalty. I mean, we saw two totally contrasting penalties today, but both brilliant in their execution. Tavernier, you couldn't, no goalkeeper on earth could have gotten near that, even with a step ladder, So, yes, it changed the game. These things do change games. Referees make mistakes. Players make mistakes. They should score and they don't. Goalkeepers let the ball through their legs. All these things happen, and they change the course of a game. Otherwise, you just have a computer game. It'd be boring. We never go and watch it. So this is what makes the game entertaining. With that, the game came alive, and we're sitting talking about it probably for far too long rather than talking about the Hibson Johnson game. But it made it a brilliant spectacle, and it's the kind of thing which makes you fall in love with football. Because let's be honest, a lot of non-Old Firm fans do not particularly like the Old Firm for all the the reasons that go with that. But to watch this game, take away the strips that the players were wearing, any rational football fan would say, that's what I want to see every week, that kind of entertainment.
I've said this before, and I said this, I think, last week as well. You watch some of these Super Sunday games on Sky, and they're really boring. Yeah. That game today, that Rangers Celtic game, is far better than any English game I think I've seen this season. I mean, I would take aside the Man United Chelsea game the other day. That was a really good game of football. But that Rangers Celtic game today was outstanding. And as I heard on the radio before I came on here, somebody actually did say, and rightly so, Man United Liverpool, over to you. Try and beat that, because that generally, as a neutral watching that was a brilliant, brilliant game.
Yeah. What was your take on the penalty, Graham?
I don't think it's a penalty. Like I said, I have no horse in this race. I don't think it's a penalty. I generally didn't see a lot of contact. Now, if I watch it again and I see contact, then fine. But I did not see any contact there. I think Silva's going down long before there's even any challenge from Johnson there. Now, again, if I'm wrong, then fine. But I don't think that's a penalty. I think John Beaton, for all the pressure that was on him, I thought he had a very good game. Now, he was under a lot of criticism. People saying he shouldn't have been in charge of this game. I thought he handled pretty much everything really well. He got the Celtic penalty bang on for the handball by Goldson. He got everything else absolutely bang on today. But for me, I just think that penalty, for me, I don't think it's a penalty.
Alistair, what was your comments about Philip Clement's that he gave to Sky? But obviously, I was watching it. But he was saying, obviously, it wasn't a penalty, but who knew he was going to say that anyway. But he's basically saying you've got to jump with your elbow. No, I'm sure that you can jump without the elbow, but maybe I'm watching a different game.
Do you know something? I think one of the problem is the law. And that's the essential problem. The way the law is framed and been reframed over the last 2 years. We all know that it is physically impossible to actually jump without moving your arms. It's physically impossible to play football without moving your arms. Again, when the games yesterday, there was a ludicrous penalty given. And the actual wording of the law, if I remember it correctly, is along the lines of your arm in relation to the situation in the game. So in other words, if you're sliding in to try and block somebody, your arm is going to come above your head naturally. It's not going to sit behind your arms naturally. So under the laws as they're presently constituted, he's got to give a penalty. Should the laws make it a penalty? In my view, no, it's absolute nonsense. And we need to change the laws back to something which most fans would agree with. The problem is that, again, I go back to the referee stuff. I can't remember who it was. I'm going to name drop you. It might have been Willie Young or Kenny Clark, or one of these kind of guys that I spoke to when I was doing the referees book. And they told me, and these guys are obviously at the top end of Scottish football, and still are. Willie's the chair, I think, of Scottish referees. When they were formulating the law on penalties and goalkeepers moving, they actually consulted physiologists and people who were specialists in human movement, because the goalkeeper said, look, we physically cannot do this the way you're constructing the law. And they should look at that in relation to defenders. You physically cannot jump without using your arms to pull you up. I can see a case being made for saying he's trying to bring his arm in. If you're of that, Rangers mind, I can see if you're a Celtic fan saying, well, actually, no, his arms are out, so it's a penalty. The problem is the law. Just now, it's a penalty. Whether you like it or not, it's a penalty. Should it be? No. I think most rational fans would say, this is nonsensical. Your hands, the only time it shouldn't be a penalty is when your hands are in an unnatural position, which is behind your back. That's a non sequitur, Incidentally, by the way, just as a complete aside, I noticed that Paul Donaldson's saying that the Lowland League Cup final sounds like a good game because there's a goal from 30 yards for East Kilbride against Tranent, but I'm just going off a wee tangent there. So.
Graham, have you ever saw a penalty given for that?
For the handball?
Yeah. But no, what I mean was his elbow out?
No, but I think he does move his arm into it. But again, it's that word we use all the time on this show. It's consistency. There is just none. Like 1 week, like that'll get given this week, where it might not get given next week, and that's the problem that I've always had with referees. Now, I've said before, I know that a lot of folk have said, bin VAR. I've always said, when we do the show, I'll talk about it as well on the show when we do it, VAR for me is not the problem. VAR is the technology. It's the officials that don't know how to use it properly. And for me, we'll get to one of the decisions later on. I think it might be the one that Alice was talking about, the Dundee game. That's not a penalty for me. No. But there's just a real lack of consistency. Nobody knows what the handball rule is. I would love somebody, a referee, somebody to come out and say definitively, what is a handball rule? Because it's nobody knows what it is. Even the one yesterday in the Hearts game, it's probably harsh on the defender. But again, letter of the law, it probably is a penalty. But then what is the letter of the law? That's the problem. There is no consistency. And that's always the issue that I have had.
And let's go to another big decision. VAR. I was getting mixed up, and John Beaton was getting mixed up when they gave a goal, but it wasn't a goal, but it was a goal, but he was pointing to the centre circle. But guess what? It wasn't a goal. See the Odessa scored the goal. McGregor gave the ball away, and I think Alistair made the point early on. It actually deflected off McGregor for the goal for Odessa's. And that may get 2-8 at the time, but the goal get ruled out because obviously there was a foul. And so what was your take on that, Alistair? Because I was getting confused because it was actually pointing to the centre spot, and then it was no goal, and all that. But you could tell because Dessers was holding his head as if to say, well, that's not a goal. What are you saying? So, yeah, what was your take on that?
Well, see, if I was a conspiracy theorist, I would say that John Beaton was automatically pointing to the centre circle, but I think he just probably made it and the foul was actually quite near that part of the pitch. It's interesting because obviously it's to do with phases of play. And there's a very famous Celtic Rangers Cup final when Joe Miller scored a goal when Roy Aitken took a throw in that wasn't Celtic's.
Yep.
That decided the cup. It wouldn't be covered under VAR. So I disagree with him. VAR is part of the problem. He's right about everything else, but that's maybe for the VAR show. But it was the right decision. Again, even Chris Boyd agreed it was the right decision, which, I mean, that's almost the barrier you've got to climb to actually prove that something, correct against Rangers. And the same, the other side with, Neil Lennon and all the rest of them. He made the right decision. At the time, you could say he should have picked it up. But again, referees make mistakes. So, yeah, right decision for me.
I don't know about you, Alaska, right? But obviously we'll talk about it when we get near the VR show as well. By the way, that's coming up in a few weeks, so watch out for that one. But John Beaton pulled it back from a foul on Iwata, I think it was. Now, somebody could have a serious injury, and that player could be out for weeks. Yeah, obviously. He let play go on, and he let the opposing team score the goal. And I know when we talk about VAR, Alaska, we always talk about, he got the decision right. But, the player, and in this case, Kamoki Iwata's case, he could have got a serious injury. Yeah, the game was carried on, and then 2 minutes later, he pulled it back.
Yeah, it's not just that particular situation, but it's particularly the case with offside, because with VAR, I don't know
like that rule.
Yeah, I don't know where Graham Hermione was away. I was saying I actually think VAR is part of the problem, though I agree with everything else that Graham said, because it's what VAR means for the game. So in the case of, players get injured, players commit fouls. The vast majority, they don't mean to injure somebody. Occasionally they do if you're really keen. But you're looking at it and thinking, well, that's parcel of the game. On the other hand, when you're playing this ridiculous second phase offside, people are starting to get injured now. And it'll be when a big name gets injured, nobody will care, with the greatest respect to Hearts or St Johnstone or Dundee, if it's one of our players. They'll make a little fuss. If it's Mohamed Salah, it's going to be all over the press. This guy got his leg broken because the linesman didn't put his flag up, and all of a sudden, you know what will hit the fan. And again, it's the consistency and actually making it. One of the great things about football is it should be played the same across the whole world. That's the beauty of the game. Here's the thought for you. VAR has actually introduced two levels of football: a game for the rich and a game from everybody else. It's no longer the universal game it once was.
No, tell you what, I'd love to see Mohamed Salah try playing that Dundee pitch. By the way, he'd definitely get his leg broken in there, like.
Or a beautiful game, Alaska.
I'm very conscious that nobody can actually see this because it was on the WhatsApp group. But did you see the photo I sent from 1936 of Dens?
Yeah. By the way, Alaska, I was just going to bring that up later on when we talk about the Dundee game. But that picture that you sent, and I don't know if Graham's, by the way, Graham's favourite programme is not River City, it's like a view from the terrace. He watches that every Friday night, right?
I do like that, yes, I do.
He even watches the repeat show, just in case he misses anything, But I was going to say to you, Graham, right, I don't know if you saw it on Friday night about Dundee. They had a feature on about
I did.
Dundee manager, right? Did you notice it was the exact same park as it was now? They haven't done anything with the stadium in like 10 years.
I know, but it is getting. I think it is getting changed though. But I quite enjoyed that programme. All about like Ivano Beretti and the players that he brought over, because I completely forgot about Claudio Canicio. I mean, that was mental when they brought him in.
And that goes back to Alaska's picture there. So there's no change the stadium for many a year, but we'll go on to Blackpool Pleasure Beach in a wee while then when we talk about the Dundee game. And also So where am I now? That was 3-2 at the time, wasn't it? I'm losing the plot here. Don't answer that one, Graham, because I know you're dying to answer that one. It's a Sunday be nice. And when Ida came on and scored the goal, Butland, in your opinion, Graham, Butland should do better, yes, but I think it was a good finish. But before that, Ida had a brilliant chance as well, and they squared it to, was it Maida in the penalty box? And
I think it's good defending though. I think it's Goulson that defends it really well.
Yep. But Maida cost Rangers problems as well, Oscar, when they come on.
Yeah, he's a good player. And going back to the shot, whether Butland could have got down to it, they said on the television, and I would kind of agree with this, that he got it out of his feet and he kicked it very, very quickly. I'm old enough to remember Charlie Nicholas playing, and he had a really short backlift, and he was able to actually propel the ball very quickly with hardly giving a goalkeeper or defender a chance to move. And there was an element of that. On another day, he might have got it if he'd actually maybe used his foot or something. But you know what's dead easy sitting here. You've got a world-class goalkeeper who's played international football. I wouldn't say it was a mistake. It was one of these things where I'm sure he'll be annoyed, but you could always do better. But I would give the credit to the Celtic forward.
Let's speak about Rangers' goal then to make it 3-each, and I think that was the game, or the goal of the game for me. Seema, that he came on. A bit like Ida, what I was saying earlier on. It cost Rangers a lot of problems when they came on. So, what was your take on the goal, Graham?
Matondo's got to make it 3-3 was an absolutely brilliant strike. Again, I like Matondo. I think he's a really good player. He's got a lot of pace. He causes a lot of problems. I think Matondo's a really good player. When he came on, he does cause problems, and it's a phenomenal strike. You know, there's absolutely nothing. You could have three keepers in that and they're not saving it. It's a brilliant strike to hit top corner. And especially when you've just gone 3-2 down, you're thinking maybe this game's gone now. To have the bottle to come back and score a goal like that, it's a phenomenal strike. Like I said, Joe Hart's got no chance, and it is definitely the goal of the game. It's a phenomenal strike.
Alistair, the game's been over now about an hour, and we'll probably debate this game until the next Glasgow derby, whenever that will be in a few weeks at Celtic Park. But who will be the happier of the managers? Will it be Philip Come On, or will it be Brendan Rodgers?
Looking at the game as it panned out, I'd have thought Brendan Rodgers would be the less happy of the two, because he's winning with only a few minutes to go. And if you're a manager, you're winning any game with a couple of minutes to go, you expect your team to see it out. So turning that on its head, then Clement will obviously be the happier of the managers on the day. Assuming Rangers beat Dundee on Wednesday, that puts them back top of the league. And that would give them, I think, a 2-point gap. So if that's the case, they drop 1 point at Celtic Park. Both teams win all the rest of the games. They've won the league.
Well, with that, I'm just hearing Alaska now that game is on Wednesday night. It's not going to be football. It's going to be beach volleyball. So there you go. First for Sky Sports. So on beach volleyball on Wednesday night at Dens Park. Wow, I can't wait for that one. Graham, last point then. McGregor came on. All the talk was before the game, will we make it, won't we make it? It was training with the squad, but I think this game came a bit too soon for him. But it's a bit ironic because McGregor came on, gave the goal away, deflected off him for the Rangers goal, and you think, well, we're getting no bit of a bad idea if McGregor never came on.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of these games, McGregor. He looked a bit rusty, which is understandable from it for a while. But I can understand why Rodgers brought him on, because Celtic were losing that midfield battle second half. He's brought McGregor on to try and bring a composure to it, and it didn't quite happen. Obviously, he gave the goal away, the second goal with a deflection. But, I mean, listen, McGregor's a brilliant player. He'll bounce back from that, no problem at all. He'll be ready for the Euros as well when they come around. But I can understand why Rodgers didn't start him. Clearly, he didn't think he was ready, and he wasn't. But it's one of these games to come into that. The way that Rangers were playing second half, the pressure they were putting on, it was very difficult. And they just
he couldn't quite get the control that he wanted. But I think, like I said, in terms of who'll be happier, it will be Clement, because when you're 2-0 down at home, I think you'll be delighted to get a draw out of that, and especially 2-0 down and then 3-2 down, and to battle back like that. And I heard somebody actually say, and I agree with this, if that's under Michael Beale, I think they lose that game. But it's what Clement's done. He's brought this kind of determination to Rangers that I don't think they had earlier on, and you've got to give him credit for that.
There you go then. The second last Old Firm game of the season finished at Desmond, as I say, in the west of Scotland. I don't know who Desmond is, actually. Maybe Dermot Desmond, I'm not sure. Rangers flee, Celtic flee.
That only works if it's 2-2, because it's Desmond 2-2. It doesn't work when it's 3-3.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. I'm having a bad.
It's the west of Scotland, Graham.
Yeah. Well done, Alistair, getting your own back on me. There you go. I was going to talk about St Johnstone game next, but because you've made that comment, Alistair, we won't speak about Kill Tuesday night, so tune in to the show as well. So, big win for Saints yesterday. I don't know if you were at the game, Alistair.
I was.
Final score: Hibs 1, St Johnstone 2, and before.
Yeah, well done, St Johnstone. Love you.
Oh, all right. I thought Liverpool scored, Glenn, the way that you were going on there. By the way, is that game started? Or was that 4 o'clock kickoff?
No, it started at 3:30. Very open game so far. United had the ball in the net after a minute, but it was ruled out for offside. Liverpool should have scored a minute later, but it's very, very open. Very open.
I bet you it'll be 0-0. Anyway, Alice got back to the big game yesterday. Hibs 1, St Johnstone 2, and that's a big win for St Johnstone away from home.
We've actually had a very good record against Hibs for quite a long time now. And I mean, not just in the cups, but obviously with the semi-final and the final, but we've tended to do well. This season, we obviously won at McDermott. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting. I thought the 3 last games, I would take 4 points out of them. I'd be quite happy with that. And I thought we should have had a point against Dundee, but we didn't. So I was pleasantly surprised. Obviously, I was keeping an eye on the score. And then Sidibe scored. Incidentally, I think we might have won a watch with this guy.
Brilliant goal, baby.
Yeah, I mean, he's 25, so obviously nobody's taking a chance on him. He's 7th tier of English football. I'll be totally honest, I thought, what are we doing picking somebody out of Warrington? You know, imagine if it's Graham, if you're Hearts and you've got a guy coming from Warrington, you're thinking, what are we doing? And you kind of saw there was 1 or 2 bits about him. Now, okay, he scored 2 goals. There's a long way to go yet. But he kind of looks the real deal. And he's got Nicky Clark up in front of him, who's maybe not Stephen McLean in terms of bringing players into play, but is a very experienced player who will help him. So, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Hibs, obviously, as I said, my friends who were at the game said the first half was rubbish. I said to them, what about the penalty? They said, what penalty? If you saw it on the television, you realise that there was a reasonable case for a penalty, but fortunately we got away with it. I'm not sure how, but we did. And then, you know, we go and win it in the 81st minute or whatever it was. It's such a big win because with Ross County losing, 4-point cushion. We've got Kilmarnock next. Incidentally, by the way, see when you go to the split, if I was one of the old firm, the last game I'd want for the last game of the season is away to Kilmarnock.
Yeah.
Given, in fact, both of them have got a not great record against Kilmarnock this season. But yeah, no, we were good. Hibs weren't good. They obviously got booed off. They weren't good against us at McDermott. I think it kind of sums up where both teams are now. We got away with it. We got the points. Hibs are they going to make the top 6? I mean, Graham's obviously got a completely disinterested point of view on that, but I'll be surprised. It's intriguing. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this season is entirely about us staying up. Getting the American guy into bias, which I believe is the due diligence is happening, and then seeing where we go after this. But who finishes in the top 6? This will maybe be a theme for the rest of the games. I'm sorry, I'm going a bit lengthy here because I was quite happy about us winning for a change. That's going to be fascinating to see what happens.
Are you quite confident, Alistair, that you'll stay up now?
Nope.
No, right. Graham, I was wondering whether to ask you this question, but I think I know your answer because you're a Hearts fan. But taking into consideration yesterday's result and they get booed off, I don't think it's a manager thing. I think it's Hibs hasn't got a good team, and they haven't got a good team for years.
I mean, I spoke to our Hibs fan Mikey yesterday. He was there, and he was not happy about Hibs' performance, and I think he's right, given the highlights that I saw. I think they do have decent players there. I think I said it before. I think Malouda looks decent. I think Marcondes looks decent. They've got Martin Boyle. But I just think defensively, they are not very good. I don't think Will Fish is a great defender at all. I think the pace that St Johnstone had at the front yesterday, Sidibe, this is the thing with Levine, right? A lot of folk criticise Levine, and I've done it as well in his second spell at Hearts, but he does know how to pick up a player from lower leagues, and he's actually done very well at that, and I think Sidibe looks really good. His goal is excellent. Great ball over the top. It's a really, really cool finish as well. And I just think his pace caused problems, but, I mean, Hibs at the moment just look like... I just don't think they're great defensively, and I think the big thing, if I'm Hibs now, and I think Montgomery kind of said it last night, the only positive you can take from yesterday is they are still in with a chance of top six because Dundee bottled it yesterday. That's the only thing you can take out of that. But I think that is a result of the day. And I'm not just saying that because it's Hibs got beat. I genuinely think it's the result of the day because I did not think anyone saw St Johnstone winning that game. I really didn't. And it's a brilliant, brilliant victory. Again, fair play to Tony Gallagher. It's his first goal. And I heard Levine interviewed after the game and he says he's been waiting for him to do that for ages because he gets decent chances, doesn't take them. And I have to love he has. And I have to love Levine interview after the game because I think Brian McLaughlin said, you must enjoy winning here. And he basically went, I love it, and then walked off with a smile on his face. I was loving that. Brilliant.
It must be said, I think a lot of Saints fans are still not convinced about Craig Levine. His job is simply to keep us up. And if he does that, fine. Kind of wonder what's going to happen thereafter, but that's in the realms of speculation. I do think I've been interested. Again, I know that obviously, Michael, you're not biased in this respect, but interested in your opinions, both of you, on who actually will make the top six, because the games yesterday didn't really give you any clues, did they?
I thought that was the worst highlight show I've saw for a while, Graham.
Well, the big... I mean, I don't think Dundee will beat Rangers on Wednesday. I think that's pretty much gone. I'll be amazed if they get in out of that game. But then next week, Dundee go to Pittodrie. Could they win there? The way Aberdeen are playing, you just never know. But the big game is at Fir Park because Mother will take on Hibs. Now, that's going to be a huge, huge game. At the moment, if I'm looking at the team that looks like they're in the ascendancy, I would probably say Motherwell after that win yesterday. But that is going to be such a massive, massive game next week. If Motherwell can win that, it's going to be huge. And given how bad they've been, given that 15-game run where they couldn't win, what a run they've been on, generally. And I think right now, I think it's very tough. I think I did say I think Hibs might just sneak in, but that game next week is going to be huge at Fir Park.
Paul Donaldson says on YouTube, I think it's going to be a 50-50 who ends up in the top six. But yeah, I think you're right, Graham. I think Motherwell might go sneak it. Because I mean they've deserved it. They've played well, and I know I've said this when Stephen was on the show. I'm still convinced if Stuart Kettlewell came in earlier to Motherwell Alistair last season, I think Motherwell would have made the top six because they did well under Kettlewell. It's just Kettlewell came in a couple of games too short, and they kind of never make the top six. But anyway, let's speak about your brilliant performance, Alistair, because I know you've been bursting to speak about it since 5-5 last night. So, I mean, away from home as well, Alistair, and I know I was saying to you that Hibs has been poor in my opinion, Hibs has been poor for many a year, no matter who they bring in, whether it's John Collins or managers like that. But I suppose it's the old phrase in football where you can only beat who's in front of you. and St Johnstone done that yesterday.
Yeah, we did, and I mean, I must sound like I'm sort of glass half empty. I'm extremely glass half full in the terms of the game yesterday, because overall, I think the general consensus was we did deserve to win it. And, if you've got Hibs fans agreeing with that, which obviously is kind of going to be the case because they've just got beat. But it wasn't like, man, I remember the way back in the past going to Easter Road, almost before it was developed, and we got absolutely battered for 80 minutes. And then Vinnie Arkins, if you remember him, the big Irish guy, blonde striker, scored with a header. It was there was no stats in those days, but we'd have had negative shots on goal if it wasn't for that. And it was the biggest piece of daylight robbery. Actually, wasn't daylight because it was a thunderstorm halfway through the game. It wasn't like that yesterday. Levine will set up a team to defend, but he's got very old defenders. He's got to try and address that next season if we stay up. Because you're looking at Constantine, 36, 37, I think. McGowan's no spring chicken. Gallagher, I don't know how old Gallagher is. He's probably mid-20s or so. He's okay from that point of view. Robinson's on loan. There's an awful lot of things still need sorted at that club. And of course, underpinning this, or behind the scenes, as it were, is what's happening about the club being sold. Because that's fundamental to St Johnstone's future.
What I would say about St Johnstone as well, that game against Dundee last week, I think they were unfortunate not to get a point out of the game. I said at the time I did the show last week, I think the goal that was disallowed was an absolute joke. That should never have been disallowed for McGowan's goal. And then obviously yesterday they get a big win, so they should really have 4 points in the last 2 games. I mean, again, I look at that St Johnstone side, and I think out with probably Jack Butland and maybe Alexander Clark, I think Mitov one of the best goalkeepers in that league. Yeah. I genuinely think they picked up an absolute gem in Mitov. And he made a couple of really big saves yesterday as well. Maybe it could have been a penalty for the first half, but I think he's a brilliant goalkeeper. And the question I want to ask Alistair, I know I've probably asked this before, but as well, I'm now looking at Theo Bear, who was at St Johnstone, was awful. He's now at Motherwell scoring goals. As a St Johnstone fan, how is that feeling watching Theo Bear ripping up at Motherwell when he couldn't do it at St Johnstone?
Well, bear in mind that we're not supposed to use bad language on this show. Couple of things. I think Mitov's better than Zander. I genuinely do. Don't get me wrong. I think Zander's a super guy, lovely guy, and deserves everything he gets. And he's a brilliant goalkeeper. I actually think Mitov is better for a number of reasons. I've watched Zander for longer than you have. Say it's for longer than you had at Hearts. Partly, I think the way they were coached, they were told to stay on the line. Mitov comes in collects the ball far more often, is far more commanding. He's as good a shot stopper. His distribution is probably about the same as Zander's. The problem is, we'll almost certainly sell him for the money, but you don't get much money for goalkeepers. I would almost rather try and get a couple of extra years in his contract, because he's not good enough, I think, to go to Celtic or Rangers or people like that who might be looking for a keeper maybe in a year or two's time. He wants to stay in the top division of whichever country he's in. That's essential, because if he's not there, he's not going to get chosen for the national team. The guy who's the Bulgarian manager will only pick players who's actually playing in the top division of the country they're in. So that's why he came to Scotland, to play in the top division. That's how we got lucky, because he could easily have got the Championship in England. And you can see he's easily good enough to play there. But no, you're right, Graham. He's an extremely good goalkeeper. Levine can, well, it wasn't Levine's choice, actually, but I mean, it was going back to Maka. You're looking at it and thinking, yeah, but this is a club rather that 3-4 years ago was regularly regarded as top 6, season after season. Now, we were punching away above our weight, but that's indicative of how far we've actually fallen. There's some good players. Matt Smith's a good player. I think Sidibe's a good player. I think he may well, as I said to you earlier, turn out to be a real star we probably can't keep. But the rest of them, there's a long way to go before we can get back to starting a season and thinking actually we'll be all right.
23 minutes gone at Old Trafford. Man United 0, Liverpool 1. Luis Diaz with the goal, and it's been coming. Liverpool have been the far better side in this first half.
If you're interested in the big game in the Northern League, I think Paul Donaldson says there's a final today. Sorry, I'm missing your point. If I'm sorry, Paul. At halftime, East Kilbride 1, Clement 1 in the halftime interval in that game. Graham, they was talking about in our group chat and what happens in. As I say, what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. Well, what happens in our group chat, I'll tell you about soon when my book comes out next week. But somebody said to me that, Shanklin's no playing, and suddenly somebody says, well, Hearts will get beat today. Obviously, that wasn't the case. But do you think that's the case for Martin Boyle? Or if he doesn't play for Hibs, then Hibs will... I think the point I'm trying to make here is maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but do you think Hibs are turning into a one-man team?
I don't think so, because I don't think Martin Ball's been anywhere near his form this season. I know he's had an injury. I don't think he's been anywhere near the same player. I know he had I think it was a goal ruled out first half for offside, which was right decision. It was offside. But I don't think Boyle is as big to Hibs now. I actually think their best player right now is Melida, who's on loan. And I've said it previously, if they can keep him, that would be huge, but he's going to cost a lot of money. But he looks their best player by an absolute mile. I don't think they're a one-man team, because honestly, I don't think Ball's been anywhere near the level he should be at. But yesterday, I generally think a lot of folk as well. I was watching the Hearts game yesterday, but I had the flash score on. And when it came up that Hibs had equalised, I thought, and a lot of folk probably thought, well, Hibs will win this game now. But you've got to give massive credit to St Johnstone, because that's a big, big win. To go to Easter Road and win a game like that, especially with us County getting beat, that's a huge, huge win. And that's got to give St Johnstone a lot of confidence. So actually, you know what, they actually can do it. Now, I said at the time, and I stick by it, I think for a club like St Johnstone, Levine's a good appointment. He's got plenty of experience. He knows how to get the best out of these players. The one thing I would say for St Johnstone, I said it before, I don't think they score enough goals. I think they're fine defensively, but they don't have that massive threat up front. But now they've got Sidibe that's got his goal. I'm a big fan of Kim Pioka. I think he was a really good player. I think St Johnstone might now get themselves out of this. Now, after the split, it's going to be really interesting. But I genuinely think that win yesterday is huge. And if they kind of get confidence from that, they never will, because that is a huge 3 points.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that both halves of the Old Firm has to go back to McDermott Park, Alaska, if I memory serves me right? I know Celtic was in December.
No, we're completely done. We've only got Kelly before the split, which will be a really hard game. We beat them in Perth just after Mack had been fired.
What I meant, sorry, was after the split. I think Celtic's got to come back to McDermott, but I'm not sure about Rangers.
No, because St Johnstone aren't in the top 6.
Yeah, I mean, understandable mistake to make, because usually we are. But
yeah, just ignore it. Yeah, can we start the show again, please? No, we can't. Okay.
Let's start at 5 o'clock.
I think I ate too many pies at half time.
You had a stressful afternoon. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Bye. Cheerio. Grim, take over.
I mean, the one thing I would say, Alistair, obviously, you watch St Johnstone a lot more than I do. I mean, you talk about Nicky Clark. I think, again, he's a big, big player for St Johnstone. I mean, I think we spoke about before. I think when Callum got sacked, I was kind of disappointed, because I thought he did a very good job. I know I've asked this before, but I'm going to ask it again anyway. What is the general vibe with St Johnstone fans are you getting with Levine? I mean, are you guys still happy that he's there? Because did he not sign a 3-year contract? I might be wrong about that. But what is the general consensus about Levine?
I think social media obviously presents one picture. And then you've got some of the older guys who sit next to me who are maybe not on social media. Let's just say the jury is still out. There's various things which it's going to sound terribly whatever. I mean, as you know, I've got quite a big connection with the club, so I've got a reasonably good idea of what's going on. It's simply keep us up and use your experience to do that. And I don't think he'll care if the fans get on his back. But you look at some games, the Dundee game, he was far too late in making his substitutions. You could see the players were knackered, and that's how he lost the second goal. And that was then reflected in almost all the comments after the game. And okay, you're always going to get the people who sound off, but I think the jury's out. I think an awful lot of people, all they want us to do is to stay up. There are some who actually think we'd better to get relegated, but I'm sorry, they're mad. If we get relegated, we're going to struggle to get back up. So, yeah, to answer your question, Graham, I don't think the St Johnstone fans, if I was writing a book now about who were St Johnstone's greatest managers, Levine wouldn't be anywhere near it. And incidentally, Callum wouldn't be number one either. It would still be Tommy. Yeah.
By the way, Graham, my taxi's outside, I need to go. They're taking me to the mental hospital. Oh, sorry, I can say that on there on the Sunday. That's terrible. Alaska, I know why where Graham was going with that question. I don't know where you were going with that question, but you know how like fans on the backs of like Craig Levine and different managers, that could work in his favour a wee bit, because then I would say, well, I'm going to show them that I'm in business here.
Yeah, I think the one biggest complaint we have, and Graham, you're commenting about, did he enjoy winning at Tynecastle? And his comment reflected more his Hearts pedigree than his St Johnstone pedigree. Uh-huh. There's not a feeling yet, I think, amongst a lot of fans, and I would include myself in this, that he's actually bought into this club. Mm-hmm. There's a feeling that he's there to do the job, and then, we'll see what transpires. Whereas Callum obviously had a history. Tommy, the feeling was right. I mean, it still is. You speak to him. I know everybody likes the clubs they managed or played for, but you can see it there. And okay, he had the success. So it's very much encapsulated in this fact that, well, not fact, but feeling that Levine is not really, he's almost more Hearts-minded than St Johnstone-minded. And that was reflected in that comment after the game. Very good for the media, but if you're a St Johnstone fan, you're thinking, well, hang on a second, who are you the manager of? If he'd said that about a Dundee game, that would have reflected well on him. If we'd had a win against Dundee, it's understanding that mentality of your support, and I don't think he's got that yet.
I think Michael, you basically said a minute ago. If there's one thing I know about Craig Levine and many other folk as well, Craig Levine has never cared what folk think about him. He's shown that in numerous years he doesn't actually care. But I mean, I've said it before. I think when he was at Hearts, his second spell, I think he stayed too long. I think he had far too much power at the club. Given the fact that, and I said it earlier in a previous podcast we did as well, when Daniel Stendhal came in, Craig Levine had been sacked. But who was the man that showed Stendhal around Tynecastle? Craig Levine. He had far too much power at the club. Now, I hope that doesn't happen at St Johnstone. I don't think he has that same power. But Craig Levine is not a guy that's ever cared what folk think about him. So, I mean, if he keeps St Johnstone up, fantastic. But I think you are right. I don't think he really cares about St Johnstone as much as maybe he should. But if he keeps them up, again, I don't think St Johnstone fans will care either.
No, we won't. I mean, that's absolutely true. On the other hand, if he takes us down, then all those negative things will be amplified, because that's the way football fans are. It would be disaster if we went down. I mean, as you know, I'm a club historian, and I've got a lot of, information about how all these things have panned out over the years. In respect to the fact I've seen a hell of a lot of it myself, because I'm a bit older than you guys. It would be a disaster for us, especially when there's this guy going to come in, hopefully, to buy us, who apparently has got lots of money. Whether that will then, actually mean that we can go and buy better players, who knows? My guess is probably not. But this is, for St Johnstone, this is an absolutely critical time. Now, that won't really matter to anybody else who's not a St Johnstone fan, but in terms of our history, there's been two times when we've nearly gone under. Once in the 1920s when we couldn't get a league, and Robert Campbell basically saved us, and then when Jeff took over in the 80s. And without those two guys, the two most important people in the club are not footballers or managers. They're actually chairman administrators. We wouldn't have a club without those guys. This is that kind of critical period as to what's going to happen the next 2 years. Now, you think about it in terms of your own clubs, which have both been through similar kind of things. That's how it feels to be a St Johnstone fan just now.
Good afternoon to Greg on YouTube. Thanks for watching, mate. And yeah, you can let us know what you think of the Dundee game. We're going to speak about that in a minute. And the game on Wednesday night, it's not football. I don't know if you've heard, but it's volleyball they're going to have on Sky Sports on Wednesday night. Before we come back to Hibs, I want to ask a point to Alaska, and I can make a similar question to Stephen on Fleggy about the buyers maybe coming into Motherwell. Are you worried about people coming in to buy clubs like St Johnstone and Motherwell? Because, no disrespect, but I mean, I don't think people would have heard of St Johnstone and Motherwell before. I think they'll be using that as a kind of like cash cow in a way as well. But also, are you worried if it doesn't work out?
Yeah, I mean, with my sort of Scottish Football Supporters Association hat on, it's something that concerns us as an organisation because we've got a number of clubs which have got American owners, or there's throughout the history of Scottish football, lots of clubs have gone bust. Lots of clubs. Nobody has a divine right to exist at all. And it's a business, strange business, because it's football, but if you're a limited company, you can go bust through bad management, whether you're a football club or a printer. So, yes, it is a worry because throughout, I think I've told you this before, the guy who sits 4 away from me, his grandfather is one of the guys who started the club. So you have that continuity. It's always been run by people from Perth and Perthshire, local businessmen. And okay, that might sound cliched and old-fashioned, but they actually were fans of the club. We're going to end up with a guy who, as far as I know, has no connection with Perth. I don't even know if he's got a connection with Scotland. Hearts have obviously had a track record of some of this kind of stuff, so you know what it's like, Graham. Of course, that worries me. My gut feel is that the guy's probably looking at the real estate and thinking, that's what I'm going to make my money out of. I'll level McDermott, I'll put housing up, we'll move across to the western side of the city, build a smaller stadium, and Bob's your uncle. So now that would be fine if he then actually is prepared to invest. But if you invest like Dundee United and get it wrong, and Dundee United, okay, they look like they're going to get promoted. If they didn't get promoted this year, they're in big trouble. So it's easy to look on the dark side, but I think it's important that you're aware of why are these guys coming in, and we're not sure. It almost seems to be like a fashion. You'll buy out a wee Scottish club.
I think that's all good and well, Alaska, but as you know as well as I do, and me and Graham, and I've spoke to you about this months of times off air as well, they don't always think about the football fans. What do you want to see for St Johnstone? Because, I mean, you've been going to see St Johnstone for, I would say, 21 years, because, you know, you're a young guy, a bit like me, maybe not so much Graham, but me as well, but they don't take into kind of like consideration about football fans. A bit like when, you know, Sky Sports kick off when they choose a game at 12 o'clock at midday, or, you know, 11:30 in the morning or something. They don't care, as long as they're getting money out of it as well. Graham, last word on this game for you, because I know that's you like to talk about your Hibs. That's your subject and mastermind. Where do you see Hibs going from now until the end of the season?
Hopefully further down the league. But I don't think that'll happen if I'm going to be brutally honest. I think, like I said, that game next week is massive. I know we're doing the show next Friday. That Motherwell Hibs game is going to be huge. I genuinely don't think I could call that right now because Motherwell is so up and down. Hibs, you don't know what team you're going to get. But I think they might just, I'm going to put my unbiased hat on here, I think they might just sneak into that top six. They should have been out of it yesterday if Dundee had won their game. But I think they might just sneak into the top six. I know Stephen won't like me saying that, but yeah, I just think it's so difficult. They need, I think, to get in that top six, to have one more game against Hearts at Easter Road. They would obviously play Celtic and Rangers as well. The money side of it is, I think, massive as well. If they fail to get top six, it would be a huge, huge blow. Now, I know there's a lot of questions being asked about Nick Montgomery. I kind of think that's ridiculous. He needs a lot more time than he's getting. But yeah, I think they might just sneak into top six. For anyone interested in this Man United Liverpool game, it's now 38 minutes on the clock. It's still 1-0 Liverpool. I do not know how it's not 3 or 4 because Liverpool have absolutely dominated this first half.
And I think if Hibs get on the top 6, that will be another game. It won't be getting shown on Sky Sports. Okay, let's move on now. You can tell I don't work for Sky. I can see what I want. Well, and minor bits and pieces. Okay, let's move on to Gregor's game yesterday. He was at the Celtic speech. Well, I was going to say Celtic speech, but maybe Dundee Beach for this game as well. What a game! What a game of football. Dundee 2, Murrow 3. Before we get on to the game, let's speak about the park. Alistair, that was another embarrassing moment for Scottish football. It was like the hokey cokey. One game, the game was on, no, it's off, no, it's on, and it's back off, no, it's on again.
I'm probably going to be in a minority view on this, but I saw all the various, social media stuff about bog snorkeling and all that kind of stuff. And when I watched the game, the highlights on the television, I actually thought the players didn't have too much of a problem. It's well known that Dens has had a problem for a very long time. They're unlikely to want to spend the money when they've got a new stadium in the offing. Why would they? Because every pound's a prisoner for clubs. But the media absolutely loved this. They stirred it with the biggest stick and made the mud puddle even bigger. Watch the game. I'm interested whether Gregor can comment on the chat or not, but I think the players had too many problems with it. And it's very easy to look back and say, oh, yeah, we played in much worse conditions back in the day. And yes, they absolutely did. And they still managed to actually, they played internationals in much worse conditions than that yesterday. But we seem to think that, we've got to have this pristine bowling green. This is April. It's been played on for most of a season. They're going to deteriorate. Dens has got a problem which makes it worse. I accept that. But I didn't have too much of a problem with it.
It was actually not a bad game, Graham. And to be honest, I totally agree with Alaska. It wasn't the way that they were talking on the radio and other platforms before the game. You thought it was going to be on the beach. But to be honest, it was only one patch in the penalty box. And like that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a couple of donkeys getting taken off just before the game started, and I'm not talking about the players. But, it was fine in the end. It was a brilliant game of football, definitely the game of the day, and I didn't think that was going to happen, to be honest, because there wasn't a lot of talk about the pitch. It did not look great. And I know that Motherwell were not happy. They made a statement saying they were worried about the health of the players, and I kind of get it, because it didn't look great. But both sets of players put in a really good game of football. It was a really fantastic game. Dundee going 2-0 up, thinking St Johnstone are winning as well. What a chance for Dundee to get top 6. They just couldn't quite do it. But for me, and we've talked about the incident in the Rangers game today with the Fabio Silva one, for me, the game changes from the penalty. That, for me, is not a penalty. And this is where I've got a problem with consistency. What is Shaughnessy meant to do with that? There is nothing he can do. That is not a penalty. Now, it does eventually get saved, but Georgie Gent scores. But that, for me, changes the game. And then Motherwell go and win the game. But I think that's a really poor decision. I don't think that's a penalty.
Let's go over to our VAR correspondent, Alaska.
Well, just before I talk about that, it just occurred to me, if Motherwell made a complaint, how ironic would it be if the SFA said, yeah, you're quite right, you've got to replay the game. I'm tempted, actually. I tell you what, you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm just going to walk across to some books across there and actually dig out the relevant bit of law for you. Don't go away.
Remember, pick the right book, Alistair. I don't want you to come back with another book.
Yeah, don't pick 50 Shades of Grey, whatever you do.
Yeah. leave that till tomorrow night as well.
Very good read, by the way. I can recommend it. You get it on Amazon. Keep talking while I find this because it's actually highly relevant. It's to do with the actual handball law and how it operates. Don't know if you guys can see it. Can you see that or not?
Kind of, but not really.
Oh, basically, it's a bit out of the IFAB laws, and it's got everything scored out from a previous season, and most of it is scored out because it wasn't working. And it is absolutely ridiculous the way it works. I'm just trying to find the actual language that's used if I can, which I probably won't now. But Here we are. Yep. Okay. Right. This is going back directly to the Shaughnessy thing. Right. It said a player is considered to have made their body unnaturally bigger when the position of their hand/arm is not a consequence of or justifiable by the player's body movement for that specific situation.
Graham, can you work that one out?
Yeah, it's not a penalty. I'm sorry, but it's just not a penalty. Like, what is Shaughnessy meant to do in that situation? He can't do anything about that. It's never a penalty.
Yeah, it's never a penalty. I mean, I speak as somebody who obviously has similar feelings to Dundee as Graham has towards Hibs. It was ludicrously unjust.
Graham, I mean, Dundee got off to a good start as well. Obviously, we'll get to Marvel in a minute or two, but I mean, I think what I was saying about the Rangers non-penalty, I would say, when Marvel got the goal through Bear for the goal for Marvel, you know, I kind of put Marvel in kind of like pole position in that game.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of these games that it looked like Dundee were going to win the game. And going 2-0 up, Jordan McGee, really good header as well. And Luke McKimmon from the corner, although I think that Liam Kelly should do better. I know a few people could blame the wind. I think Liam Kelly's got to do better. And I know that Stephen has said the same thing. And at that point, 70 minutes in the clock, you're thinking, Dundee have got this now. They're going to finish top six. And listen, fair play to Motherwell, it's a great recovery, but the game changes on that penalty. Theo Bair I thought was excellent all game. Takes his second goal. He takes his goal really well. Though I don't know what McCracken, the Dundee goalkeeper's doing that far out his box, to be fair. And then they win it in the end. But it's a massive blow for Dundee. But fair play to Motherwell. You know, they kept on going, and what a job Stuart Kerr was done. Like I said, to go 15 games without a win, not get sacked, the job he's done has been incredible.
Alistair, apart from the game today, obviously, but I think this was the game of the weekend.
Yeah, and I'm conscious I never answered Graham's question earlier about Theo Bair, mainly because I didn't want to. But
it's okay. I don't want to sometimes, Alistair. Don't worry about it.
And the answer to it is I don't know how on earth Saints managed. Well, I think I've told you guys before, Nick Dazovic had said that, if you remember Nick Dazovic, he played for Saints Canadian International, obviously, he was involved. So he said he'll take some time to acclimatise. He has taken time to acclimatise. He was absolutely bobbins at Saints. And my understanding from Motherwell fans was that they weren't all that impressed at the start. But he started to score and his confidence is up. And like any striker, when your confidence is up, you'll carry on scoring. And he absolutely tormented Dundee yesterday. Okay, he missed a penalty, he missed a few other chances, but strikers do that. And he still got his goal. It was, because of the ending of it, a really entertaining game. Now, I don't know about the Dundee guys who are actually watching this, but you know, you're 2-0 up, 20 minutes to go. You're thinking, we should win this. Again, little plug for the book. Stat, actually, meaning what there is a stat in there. They did analysis in England of about 1,000 Premier games. And if you're 2-0 down, the chances of winning 3-2, something like a couple of percent, it's less than 5%. So it's very, very rare to come back, particularly in that amount of time. So they scored, 3 goals in about 10, 12 minutes or something? I can't remember exactly, but it was phenomenal. You know, and yeah, to that extent, it was until today, it was the game of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good advert for the game, Glenn. You know, out with the Celtic Rangers game today, it was a good advert to and you know, just could show that professional football players can play on beaches as well.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the radio before the game yesterday, and they must have spent about half an hour talking about the state of the park, and rather than talk about the actual game itself. And it was a brilliant game of football. I mean, fair play to both sets of players for trying to play, get the ball down, try and pass it. It was a great game again for a neutral fan to watch. And I think, I mean, if I'm Dundee, I'm gutted that you've not won that game, especially when you come off the park to hear the Hibs have got beat. I mean, that must be an absolute kick in the teeth when you know that if you'd won, it must be. it must be gutting if you're a Dundee fan. They can still do it, but it's just a big, big blow. But like I said, you've got to give credit to Motherwell because Motherwell could now potentially get top 6, which is just crazy given the season they've had.
And now, Graham, I don't know if I haven't told you this because I just got an email this morning about it. Next week, I have organised an interview for Stephen to go and interview Liam Kelly on that one. So, yeah, that will be good. To be fair, I think it was quite windy at the beach yesterday, Graham.
It was, but I know that he's had a lot of criticism about Liam Kelly and cross balls, and I think rightly so. For me, I think he's got to do better. I genuinely think he's got to do better than that. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I just think watching it last night, I think he's got to do better. Don't get me wrong, fair play to Luke McKibben. He manages to score from a corner kick, and actually somebody did say during the commentary as well, I wish somebody would actually take more shots in my corner with the wind. They did, but I just think Liam Kelly for me is not a good enough goalkeeper. I will be generally gobsmacked if he's at Euros. I don't think he will be, but I'll be generally gobsmacked if he goes to Euros because he's not good enough. And Stephen said that numerous times he's not good enough.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, he's a good goalkeeper, but he's not an international quality goalkeeper. I mean, he had a similar, not quite going to the corner when we played Motherwell at Motherwell the last time before Christmas. He was badly at fault for their goal, and yeah, the wind. I know the one thing goalkeepers hate more than anything else is wind. They can put up the range, everything else, but it's the wind that really gets them. He should have done better. It was a hell of a good corner. You got to be honest and say, the guy really did what you want him to do. And you're right, people don't score from corners very often. I could be very boring and tell you some anarchy stuff about that and how that's actually down to Scotland, that you can score from corners, but that's by the by. Let me know if you want to hear some boring stuff from the 1930s about when they brought the law in about that. And it actually made it a much more exciting game because you had this really bad conditions. If I was Dundee, actually, you know what I'd have done? I'd have bought some beach balls and had the players warming up with them, just to actually make the point, or give them another ball.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but talking about beach balls, this is an English Premiership thing, but there was a game Sunderland-Liverpool years and years ago where a Darren Bent goal hit off a beach ball and went in, and Liverpool, and I was raging at that goal got given, because I think if you actually watch the referee, he actually thought, well, what do I do? I don't know how to deal with this, so he just gave the goal.
I do remember that, yeah. I think Darren Bent still talks about it, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would say Dundee at home, Graham. I mean, they've got to recover right away because he's got a big game on Wednesday night. If it's on at the moment. It might be off by 4:45 tonight, and it might be on by the time we go off here at 5. But I'll let you know. But Dundee's got a massive game on Wednesday night, and it's not going to be easy for Rangers going away up there.
Well, the last time they played at Dens Park, Rangers won 5-0. I don't think it'll be quite as comfortable as that this time. And you've also got a factor in the pitch as well. I don't see Dundee winning that game. It would be a massive boost for them if they could. They've got one more game left after that at Pittodrie. And I like if I'm a Dundee fan, I'm looking at the game at Pittodrie thinking that's a game we could win. Because Aberdeen are not in great form. They only drew 0-0 against Livingston yesterday. But that's the game Dundee can look at and think, we've got a chance here. And do you know what? If I'm a Dundee fan, I'm delighted taking it to the very last game, because I think most teams when they come up from the Championship, their main aim is to stay up. Dundee have done that quite comfortably. If they can finish top 6, it's a massive, massive bonus. I don't think there's massive pressure on them next week. If they can do it, fantastic. And if you go up for Pittodrie and get a win there, it is massive. But I don't think they'll get anything on Wednesday. I'll be really surprised if they win that game.
Let's move on to a game that Graham would be happy with. But Alice, I've never saw a game of football, but you get beat, but you're still happy because you make the top 6. Because, listening to the game last night, you were expecting St Mirren fans to boo, but they were actually cheering at the end of the game. It was a bit bizarre, but only in Scottish football, Alaska. But Mirren got beat 2-1 yesterday, but still made the top 6.
I'm friends with a couple of St Mirren fans who both sent me messages, and exactly as you said, they were actually very happy about it. Well, they weren't happy getting beat, but they were happy that they were in the top 6 for the second season in a row, which I think they'd never qualified until last season for the top 6. Yeah. So that's a real achievement, and they're a good team. I think they were, Graham may disagree, but in the same way that Shaughnessy's goal was not goal, handball in quotes, was never a handball. The penalty art, Scott. Sorry, that's not a penalty for me.
No.
Yeah, I actually think it's one of these kind of things. I mean, that's the kind of game I think in the last, the last 5-6 games of the season. Once we have after the split, you've got those 5 games. There's going to be some very good games because on their day, St Mirren are quite capable of beating Hearts if they get Hearts on a bad day. Kilmarnock are capable of beating anybody at Kilmarnock. Obviously, you've got the Old Firm. I think whoever actually makes the last place in the top 6 might end up being the whipping boy. I remember once we qualified the top 6, we lost every single game. And I fear that whoever does that might happen to them. But the rest of the teams, I think, will give each other good games. And you could see that yesterday.
Can you not remember, Alaska, before I digress as I always do sometimes, but can you remember this season? I think it was Kilmarnock missed getting top 6, but they had more points than the 5th team, was it, in the top 6?
Was that no, I'm trying to think.
It was definitely a season where, maybe it wasn't Kilmarnock, but it was definitely a team that just missed out in the top 6. But when you look at the points, I had more points than the team.
Was it not COVID time when the whole thing was a bit of a shambles?
It might have been, but I thought it would have been before COVID, but you might be right. But if anybody's watching, you can let us know. But I'm sure it was Kilmarnock, Alaska. Might be wrong, might be another team, but we'll come back to that one. Graham's went off a quiet, so I think he's fell out with Alaska because he thinks it wasn't a penalty. And you're going to fall out with me as well because I don't think it was a penalty as well. But listen, you would take it all day long, jogs, grants, go from the penalty spot. Graham, what would your take on the penalty?
Penalty all day long, what are you talking about? Come on, Stevie Wonder can see it's a penalty. No, I think it is. I think it is probably very harsh. He is going down in the ground. I don't know what he's meant to do there. His arm is up. It is very, very harsh. How long can I do?
Oops. And Graham has definitely fell with us because he's managed to knock himself off, raise back again. Oh no, he's not. Is it John beating Alaska with the goal? Yeah, well, this afternoon that it wasn't a goal.
Run off, yeah. While we're waiting for Graham to re-establish contact, hang on, and orientate himself. Just apropos of nothing, being an amateur.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
You were telling us it wasn't a penalty.
Hello.
Yep.
Hello. Yep. Obviously, Graham's having a few technical issues today, and I told you, Alistair, he's not happy with me and you.
Well, I'm sorry, it wasn't a penalty. It really was. I remember we had a game against Dundee United, first game of the season, it might have been, when the law was changed about handball, and Liam Craig slid in and blocked a shot exactly like the one yesterday against St Mirren. His arm is above his head because it's got to be physically. This goes back to the thing I said about goalkeepers being on the line for penalties, how they actually spoke to physiologists to actually work this out. Where else can your arm go in those circumstances? It just does not make sense. And, we can discuss this till the cows come home. The whole thing is an absolute joke. It really is.
Remember how when you watch the Eurovision Song Contest, guys stand and say, let's go to whoever, and they say, hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? So Graham, come in.
Typical. I got a phone call just as I was talking there, so I had to go off there.
It was never penalty, but
it wasn't the best of games. I mean, the first half, the wind really didn't help. It wasn't a great game of football. I think first half both teams tried to get the ball down, but it was difficult. I think the penalty is very harsh. I don't know what the defenders meant to do about that, but fair play to George Grant, tucked it away very well. And I think before I came on, I did say that when I saw the team sheet, and I think most Hearts fans thought the same, when I saw the team sheet and there was no Shankland on it, I was thinking, right, I'm worried here because I don't know who's going to go get the goals. But I'm delighted that Chile won the game without Shankland, because a lot of folk, and rightly so, I've said it myself, we are very reliant on Shankland. So to win that game away from home without him was a big, big 3 points. The second goal, I don't know what Mikel Mandro's trying to do. It's a great ball in from Alec Cochrane, but I don't know what Mandro's trying to do. But it's a huge win. And the best thing is, and I didn't know this until yesterday, that is now our 10th away win in a single season since 1992, which is a mental stat. Hearts should not have as bad a record as that. It really is crazy. But I'm delighted with that. There was one incident in the second half where the referee went to the monitor, and this doesn't happen often, because the referee went to the monitor. It was a challenge by Denham on McMenamin, and the referee went to the monitor and didn't change his mind, and I thought he was right. It was never, ever a penalty. I've seen a few St Mirren fans going, that's a penalty all day long. I'm sorry, it's not. If you actually watch Denham, he pulls out. It's never a penalty. But I'm delighted with that. It's a brilliant 3 points in really difficult conditions.
If your big game in the Lowland League Cup final today, Paul Donaldson's maybe watching that one or at the game. He is saying 2-1 to the East Kilbride against the roundabout. East Kilbride is like the roundabout town to me. But anyway, that's for another show for another day. Alistair, should Mirren got a penalty in that game?
I couldn't tell. Probably not. It's a little bit like the one the Rangers won today. It's the Rangers one I thought was more obvious. You could see there was contact. You couldn't see at all from the television that we saw last night whether in fact there was contact. And on that basis, if there's not enough evidence, then it's not a penalty. What we don't know, obviously, is what the referee saw. And again, this comes back to, we talk about this in the VAR program. Why can't we get to see this stuff? So on that basis, I'm reasonably happy with that. 99% of the time, I would rather just go with the referee's first decision, even if it's against my team. I would just get VAR out of the game because it just sucks all the joy out of it for me, But going back to that own goal, you were talking about the Dundee goal, Graham, and not the Dundee goal, the Dundee goal where Kelly, made a mess of it. It's really, in those conditions, it's really hard for goalkeepers, really hard. And I've actually looked it up, so I'm going to give you this boring stat. But did you know that Scotland are responsible for you being able to score directly from corners?
Didn't know that.
There you go. 1924, the SFA put forward a proposal that you could score directly from corners, and it was accepted, and it's been the case ever since. And if you want an even more boring stat, I might have told you this one before, but IFAB made a mess of the way they did the law. So players started dribbling the ball from corners, and the referees didn't know how to cope with it. And it was all over the Scottish press at this time because it was such a controversial thing. And basically, they'd written the law incorrectly. Does that sound familiar?
I think,
yeah.
We've ever heard that one before, Graham.
They had to rewrite it, and the referees were given fouls under ungentle conduct. It was absolutely farcical, and it just shows you that things just don't change.
Graham, if you were a St Mirren fan, as I say, disappointed that you got beat, but happy, try and work that one out. Happy but not happy that you get beat, but still make the top six. I was a bit, I thought St Mirren were pretty poor on the highlights package, but Hearts done well enough to not only to get the win, but they created some good chances throughout the game as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've given George Grant a lot of criticism in the past, and I actually thought it was his best game for us yesterday. I thought he was very impressive. I'm a big fan of Macaulay Tate. I've always said I like Hearts playing more youngsters. I thought he was excellent yesterday. And I think we probably did just about deserve to win the game. I thought Kenny Vargas was really good. Like I said, when you've not got Lawrence Shankland on your team, you are worried where the goals are coming from. So I was delighted to win that game. But, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen two teams delighted after one team's won. It was really weird watching that game and seeing St Mirren fans delighted that they got top six, having just got beat. But to be fair to St Mirren, they deserve it. They've had a great season. You know, I know we'll talk about Kilmarnock, but St Mirren have had a great season. I think Robinson's a very good manager. I think they will finish fifth this season. They've brought in a lot of decent players that are a really good team. They're really well organised. I am slightly surprised, and maybe I don't know a lot about it, but I'm slightly surprised that Robinson maybe hasn't been linked with the Aberdeen job, because I think everyone else has. But he's done a fantastic job. He really has done a fantastic job. And to be sitting top six quite comfortably, they've done brilliantly. You know, yesterday was one of these games that the conditions really didn't help. It was horrible, horrible conditions. And I'm just delighted that Hearts have got the job done, because we've got Livingston next week, which we should win. And that will hopefully secure third place going into that semi-final against Rangers. We need to build momentum. But I've said it before, the job that Naismith has done, I think, has been outstanding. I wasn't a fan at the start, but he's turned my opinion. What a job he's done.
Let's look at St Mirren, Alistair, because no disrespect to St Mirren fans watching this as well. I always like to cover my back when I say this as well. It's okay, Mark Harder doesn't watch this, I'll be fine with his comment as well. But St Mirren's made the top six in back-to-back seasons now, big credit to them. And I mean, am I being about unfair that St Mirren's kind of like punching above their weight? Because I wouldn't imagine, and you might know this better than me and Graham as well, but I wouldn't imagine that St Mirren would have a big budget in Scottish football.
No, I don't think you are being unfair and saying they're punching above their weight. I mean, St Johnstone punched above their weight for a long time under Tommy Wright, and we absolutely did. But if you're a St Mirren fan or a St Johnstone fan back then, you absolutely suck it up, because it's the best time you're ever going to have. And Robinson made that point after the game. He talked about the resources that they had available to them, and he's quite right. I don't know the respective budgets. I'd imagine they probably got a little bit more than us, but not much. So if you actually arrange the league in terms of size of budget, it's, apart from Ross County, who've got obviously quite a wealthy chairman who pumps money into it, it's probably about right in some respects. Livy have got less than the else, and they're at the bottom. We've got not an awful lot, we're kind of near the bottom as well. So St Mirren, not just because I've got good friends who are St Mirren fans, but I've had some very entertaining games against St Mirren over the years. I've watched them. I mostly remember the ones where we won, the ones where we got beat. But it's a place I like going. It's not, you know, it's easy to get parked as long as you don't park in the wrong area and then get, you know, a ticket.
Well, you've got no car.
Well, exactly. That's right. You don't have platoons of little boys offering to look after your motor, and it's a nice, tidy wee ground. And they've got some good players. They're usually good games to watch.
Yeah, no, Graham. I mean, you've got to remember as well that okay, they get beaten in the Scottish Cup quarter-final, but don't forget that they went to Parkhead was it last season in the quarter-finals, and it took Celtic to 65 minutes to score like 3 goals. So I mean, that's unbelievable for a team. A team the size of St Mirren going to Parkhead, putting up a good fight in the quarter-final of the Cup. All right, still getting beat, but I mean, massive credit has to go to St Mirren.
No, absolutely. They've had a great season. You know, to be certain where they are very comfortably. I think they've been a really good season. Yesterday wasn't really their day. They just didn't perform, but the win really didn't help. But what a job Robinson's done. I know that Paul in the comments are talking about that as well. I would only take Robinson at the end of the season. We already had to pay St Mirren a large sum for Jim Goodwin, which is fair. But I just think they've had a great season. And, you know, I don't think they'll finish fourth. I think Kilmarnock will just get fourth. But honestly, the job he's done has been incredible. And there's 1-1 at Man United Liverpool.
And 1-1 and it's 2 each in the cup final. Anthony between Iscobreg and Kinnan and might be going to extra time. So, Paul, hopefully you'll be keeping us across that until 5 o'clock when we're finished tonight. Yeah, a bit of a bizarre game at Alaska. Like, St Mirren get beat, but still happy that the Midlands got football. But hey, that's Scottish football, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think it's one of these kind of, we've said this several times, it's very, very unusual. You go to a game and both teams are happy, including the one that's got beat. But it makes for a happy atmosphere after the game. I don't know, were you there, Graham? Or?
I wasn't. I was watching it though.
Yeah, right. So I would imagine it means everybody goes so happy, the pubs make more money. What's not to like, you know?
Yeah, and your car would still be there after the game, Alaska, if you went, because they would be happy. Anyway, moving on. The police is at my door now. I'm getting worried about this. Okay, let's talk about the next game. This was actually not a bad game as well. That's Camargue 1, Ross County 0, Alaska, and you would be quite happy with this. I don't know why.
I was ecstatic about it. I just think Kilmarnock are a very, very good team this season. But when you're playing somebody, whether it's us or Ross County or whoever at the bottom of the league who are actually fighting for their lives, it's always going to be a kind of stuffy game. And when they've got the boy Murray who can score goals, that makes it even more so. And he always look like their most potent threat. But Kilmarnock, you know what? I think Dale's a very good manager. He's certainly laid the foundations for what St Johnstone have had in the last decade or so. It's almost a sort of Tommy Wright type performance. You go into a difficult game and you just come out and you just win because you're just so well organised. You've got one or two players who make the difference and you cope with the conditions better than the opposition. It was talking to friends this morning who were at the game. They were delighted, Kilmarnock fans, because obviously I live across this neck of the woods. And I think, as I said earlier on, if you're the old firm, the one game you don't want last game of the season is away at Kilmarnock.
Graham, they always say support your local team. Ben, Alastair didn't get that memo, I don't think, as well.
No, I knew that.
Yeah. Graham,
I do support my local team though, Michael, but I just don't live there anymore. That's the difference.
Okay, yeah. I know, Graham, I know we were talking about him Friday night, and by the way, it's going to come up in a few weeks' time. I'll be asking for your nomination for the manager of the year, but Derek McInnes would have to be up there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the job he's done has been absolutely incredible. They actually do, they do try and play good football. They've got I said it last week, they've got such a threat out wide with Danny Armstrong, and they've got Matty Kennedy. They are such a massive, massive threat. Oh, how has Liverpool not scored there? Got to finish that. But yeah, I mean, Kilmarnock have had a great season, sitting very, very comfortably fourth, I think. To be honest, I think actually Alice was right. The one place you don't want to go for the Old Firm is Rugby Park, because they're such a difficult team to play against. I mean, again, as the game was getting on yesterday, watching flash scores coming in still nil, I thought, decent result for Ross County. But fair play to the Celtics, a decent finish. And what a job they've done, seriously. They have been excellent. And if they get European football, I mean, what an achievement it's been. And generally, if he got manager of the year, I don't think many folk could complain, because I think the job he's done has been outstanding. We said it earlier. They won the January window, but I think they also won the summer window. The signings they've made have been absolutely outstanding.
I was saying this to Laurie a couple of weeks ago on the show as well. Danny Armstrong, he's been a standout for Kilmarnock this season, but because we're getting towards the end of the season, would you be worried of him being there next season? Because, I mean, he could do a job for any team in the league.
Yeah, I not just in Scotland, but elsewhere. He clearly is he's the kind of player you want to pay money to watch. Matty Kennedy, less so. We had Matty Kennedy, we brought him up from down south and sort of rejuvenated his career in Scotland. He didn't really quite hit the heather on fire at Aberdeen, I don't think. But he seems to just fit into that Kilmarnock team really well. He doesn't score a lot of goals, tends to hit the woodwork a lot, which he did yesterday. He used to cut in and then ping it from about 30 yards onto the bar, but never under the bar, which always really used to upset me. But again, an entertainer. And they've got Van de Veen as well, don't they? I mean, what's the state of him? You know, he's not even getting in the team.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that one, Alistair.
Yeah, but I think you're right. In terms of manager of the year, he'll not get it. He'll not get it for the same reasons that Callum never got it when he won 2 cups. How can you be St Johnstone manager, win 2 cups and not be manager of the year?
Yeah.
Answers on a postcard. I think we all know what the answer is.
My postcard is right outside your door, Alistair. So if you turn round, you might see your postcard. But yeah, I mean, but not even Danny Armstrong, Alistair and Graham. They've got you can go through the whole team. They've got Vaga scored the goal for Kilmarnock. You've got Donnelly, you've got Brophy. So McInnes is actually building a good team down there. And I know that you were saying about Aberdeen, and I'm not saying for a minute he will go back to Aberdeen, but what I'm saying is teams might be sniffing about McInnes at the end of the season.
There was actually an April Fool locally here that Kilmarnock had given permission to Aberdeen to speak to Derek McInnes, which actually had some people really worried for a bit. It was on some of the local chat groups down here on Facebook. I don't think he would go back. I think he obviously lives in the West. I think he's quite settled here. The only place he would go, they wouldn't get the job, is probably Rangers. Yeah.
Were you surprised, Gallagher, that when all the talk was happening about him and Rangers, how he never went to Ibrox?
The Rangers fans, I know, didn't want him. So, was I surprised? Not really. I think it's a bit like Aberdeen, which I know we'll talk about presently. I mean, replacing a manager when you're in a bit of a hole is difficult, which Rangers were to some extent at that time. And I think if you're a manager, you probably would look at it and go, is that the right time to go there? You know? So unless you're an absolute die-hard Rangers fan, which obviously some people are, then that will skew their judgment.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No,
Paul,
I was just going to say Paul Donaldson's put a comment on the chats, and Cormac and McInnes don't get on. I don't think Cormac gets on with really anyone at the moment. I don't think Cormac gets on with himself, to be quite honest with you, but that's just a personal opinion. Cormac, some record at home, Graham, and it's brilliant to see a brilliant home support as well back in the team. As for Ross County, do you think it will be playoffs again this season?
Yeah, possibly. I think especially that St Johnstone win yesterday. But again, I think under Don Kelly, they've actually performed quite well. They look a lot better than they did under Derek Adams. But as I said on Friday, they couldn't do any worse. I just think Don Kelly's got that bit of positivity about him. They could still get out of it. And obviously they're playing teams in and around them after the split, which is going to help. But, again, it's a disappointment yesterday. Watching the highlights, I don't think they had a lot of chances. I think Kilmarnock did deserve to win. But I do think they probably will be in that playoff. And the difficulty is, and I've said it previously, I've said about Livingston, any team that goes into the Championship is going to struggle to get back up because it is so difficult, that league. You've now got Falkirk in there. Hamilton can still come up as well. That league is so difficult. You do not want to be in there because it is such a tough gate. It's tough to get out of. When we get to Livingston, I'll talk about it more. But I generally think any team that goes down there could be there for a while because it's the most competitive league in Scotland.
Yeah.
Alistair?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I said that earlier on. I mean, I really do worry if we went down that we would struggle to get back up again because even just being in the playoff, you look at Wraith Rovers, you look at, Dundee United, I think will probably win the league. You look at Thistle on their day. I mean, Thistle obviously were coasting against Ross County. It looked like it in the playoff last year and then blew it. It will be very hard for whoever's in the playoff to actually win. Normally they do, as you know, but I think it's different this year. And I think once you're down for some time. And it's very easy. You look at teams like Dunfermline, look at Falkirk, classic example. Went down 2 divisions. These are, in Scottish terms, big teams. They're bigger than St Johnstone. and they've really, really struggled. So well, Kilmarnock went down as well. They're again another big team. It then actually brings up the subject of league reconstruction, and should we actually go down that route and all those kind of things?
Now, guys, we've got about maybe 11 minutes left on the show. I'm definitely trying to pad out so that we can speak about Livingston and Aberdeen at 4:55, so that we've got 5 minutes to watch. To be honest, Graham, that's why I left this game last to speak about. And to be honest with you, watching that game last night and my off day, missed that chance. I don't know about you, but that just summed Aberdeen season up for me.
I mean, if there's one guy you want going through a goal for Aberdeen, it is Majowski. I mean, fair play to Shamar George, he does well, but I think Majowski, the quality he's got, I think he should score. It's a chance. It's a big miss. And again, there wasn't a lot of quality in the game. Fair play, Livingston managed to get a point. They're 9 points behind. They are down. There's no doubt about that. But for Aberdeen, it's another massive blow. I mean, the goal they get in the last minute. Again, watching it last night, I don't. There was no real lines drawn on it, so it was hard to tell. I think that's very harsh. I don't think he's offside, but again, we've not seen the lines drawn. I think it's very harsh. It's a really good goal for Majowski, actually. He takes it really well. But again, it's such a harsh decision. Really is a harsh decision. But listen, flip at Livingston. They managed to get a point in that game, which I thought they might do. But it's such a big. It's not great for Aberdeen. They've got to be better than that.
But did you not say, Alaska, or maybe I'm getting mixed up, one of the games that the BBC asked for the lines to be drawn, and I'm sure they come back with some weird, stupid answer. It's not like Scottish football to have a weird, stupid answer, but, and they said something about, well, the decision was already taken, so why do you need to see the lines or something like that?
Yeah,
was it that game? Yeah.
It was that game. I heard it. It was something along the lines of, as you say, the decision was taken. Plus, it was obvious. Well, it wasn't. Obvious, Graham said it was very, very tight. Now, I actually think there's a degree of karma in this because everyone says these things even themselves out. I'm not sure they do, but you look at that and you think, well, Aberdeen got away with one at Motherwell. Aberdeen should certainly not have won that game because of the Bear penalty and the Shinnie, or the Aberdeen handballing was Shinnie at the end of it. So you kind of look at that and think, well, so they got away with one there. They didn't get away with one here. We didn't get away with one against Dundee, but got away with one against Hibs. They do tend to even themselves out a wee bit. But it was a poor game. Aberdeen are not a good team just now, and I actually think that they're obviously going to be the bottom six, barring, it's just not going to happen. They're going to be Aberdeen. That's not acceptable. Aberdeen are the third biggest club in Scotland. I would have said with respect to Graham and Hearts in terms of their size. So it's really, if you're an Aberdeen fan, and obviously they've got a big support, they travel brilliantly. I mean, they really do take their fans all over the place. It's just not acceptable for their supporters.
Paul Donaldson was at the game that yesterday. He said it was an awful game, two poor teams, but I'm guessing, Paul, that you had a macaroni pie, so that make up for the game. When I'm there, I always take about 2 or 3 and put one in my pocket as well for the way home. But yeah, Graham, I can't say much about the game because, obviously they never showed you much of the highlights, just because, as Paul said, there wasn't much highlights to be seen.
No, it was one of these games. I think a lot of folk going along that game yesterday probably thought this won't be a classic, and it wasn't. I did think Aberdeen might just sneak it and look like they had in the last minute, but it wasn't a great game. I know that Paul talks about conditions. I think everywhere the conditions were horrible yesterday, but it's a big point for Livingston. It's not going to really help because they're going down. But for Aberdeen, it just sums up the season they've had. They've been so disappointing. They still have no manager in yet. What's that now? 36 days without a manager. There's a lot of talk about that Jimmy Thielen from Sweden coming in. They need to get a manager in soon. The manager's got to look at that squad, assess what he needs, assess the players that he needs to get rid of. They've got a big semi-final coming up against Celtic in a couple of weeks, which I don't think they'll win. They need stability, and they don't have it. You know, I've got to give credit to Peter Leaven. He's coming and taking that job on. He doesn't want it. He's doing the best that he can. But they need to get... Yeah, so do I. They need to get stability. Now, I think something about Neil Warnock basically saying about the ex-Aberdeen people. He wasn't exactly complimented. It wasn't. I heard Willie Miller yesterday wasn't happy. But it's just been an absolute disaster. It's been an absolute disaster. And the funny thing is, we did the European shows, and I said that in a lot of those games, Aberdeen played really well. But in the league, they have been dreadful. I mean, Aberdeen should not be bottom six. Neither should Hibs. They should not be bottom six. It's been an absolutely horrendous season.
And it's been a disaster game for Paul Donaldson, because I can't believe, Alistair, that he went to the Coney Macaroni Arena in the bag of macaroni pie. That's terrible, Paul. Do not watch the show. No, in fact, I'm on the kicking. But I can't believe that. I mean, you are going to have words after the show, right? You can email me. I'll give you my email address, and we'll have a bit of pie banter back and forth as well. Alistair, we were talking about this on the show on Friday, obviously for the past couple of weeks as well. But Livingston are down. But I think I would fear for Livingston's lives, because, and I don't know if you know where I'm going with this one, but if Livingston goes down, I think they will go part-time.
Yeah, I think it's fairly well known that their finances are not in good shape. Wouldn't surprise me. Just incidentally, going back to the pies, my advice, if you're going to Livingston, don't worry about the pies. Take a pot of paint and some wood and paint it, because I can guarantee you that'll be better than watching the game. The worst game I've seen this season was their game against Livingston just before Christmas. It was just after Derek Adams had his rant, and everybody in the crowd was going, Derek Adams had a point, didn't he? It was so bad. And the last game against them at Perth wasn't much better. So, take some paint and a bit of wood and just watch it dry. I think Livingston are in trouble. They're obviously down. Will they do some damage in the next couple of weeks, though? That's the only interesting question. Will they actually pull off one or two shocks which for example, beat Aberdeen? Which, if you're an Aberdeen fan, would be a nightmare scenario.
The best pie Paul's had is away to Motherwell a few weeks ago. There you go. And coming up on the show next week, we've got Mary Berry coming on the show to talk about pie from wherever she supports. So that's that one. Okay, that's yesterday's games. Graham, give us a wee update on the game between Liverpool and Man United.
It has all changed. It's now Man United 2, Liverpool 1, and I do not understand how, because Liverpool have dominated this game. It was a really poor mistake from Kwanzaa, gave it straight to Fernandes, who scored from just inside Liverpool's half, and then Kobe Mainoo's just scored an absolutely brilliant goal. But generally, this is robbery. Liverpool have absolutely battered United. I do not know how they're 2-1 down.
And let's look at the Championship, guys, before we go. Some interesting scores yesterday. Early 3, Morton 1, Glenfermon 1, Packet Thistle 1, Inverness 2, Arbroath 1, Queen's Park 0, Dundee United 5. I think that was the score of the weekend for me in the Championship. And Raith Rovers 2, Ayr United 1. Well, guys, what was your score of the weekend in the Championship, Alistair?
I think United beating Queen's Park, because Queen's Park have been playing well. And that, I think, will probably win them the league, because I know Raith did win the tricky game against Ayr. Yep, but 2-1. United have got the resources. If it's theirs to throw away, let's put it like that.
Graham?
Yeah, I think it has to be. Going away from home, scoring 5 goals. I know a lot of United fans are not overly convinced with Jim Goodwin and wanted him gone. It's a big result. I mean, Raith do have a game in hand, though, which could be crucial. But it's a big win, a really big win. And to be fair to Raith, they've done well to keep up pace, beating the Ayr United, but it's got to be United. Scoring 5 goals away from home, brilliant result.
East Kilbride has just missed a penalty by in the cup final. I take it that's went into extra time. So it's still one each between East Kilbride and Cunningham. Do you think Rangers will get anything midweek, Alistair, against Dundee?
I tell you what's more interesting, actually. On the back of the last time they were there, they had that enormous, intimidating Pyros display.
Yeah.
And obviously, Dundee with the wee boy nearly losing his eye. That's something I think that you kind of hope that the Rangers fans would just acknowledge that and not do anything daft this time.
Paul said, no, it doesn't go to penalties. Sorry, it doesn't go to extra time. It goes straight to penalty kicks. What a weekend of football, guys. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for everybody. Ed Watson. Thanks for all the pie chat as well. It's been very entertaining. Thanks to Alaska and thanks to Graham as well. And we'll be back doing on all again next weekend, Friday, 5 until 7 here on Independent Live. Thanks for watching.